As the final notes of the closing hymn faded into the ancient stones of Westminster Abbey, the royal family remained seated for a moment, reluctant to break the spell of connection and peace that had settled over them. The ceremony had officially concluded, but the emotional resonance of what they had experienced together would linger far longer than any formal protocols. William looked down at Louis, whose hand was still nestled trustingly in his own, and felt a profound sense of completion. This day had reminded him of why all the duties and responsibilities of royal life were worthwhile, not for the ceremony itself, but for the opportunity to serve alongside the people he loved most in the world. The pressure of public expectation would always be there, but moments like these showed him that their family bond was strong enough to withstand any challenge. Kate gathered her composure, wiping away the last traces of tears with a subtle gesture that somehow made her appear more radiant, rather than disheveled. The genuine emotion she had displayed had endeared her even more to the watching public, who recognized in her response the feelings of any mother witnessing her children participate in something meaningful and significant. As they prepared to rise and begin their recessional, Charlotte looked up at her parents with shining eyes. The ceremony had been long for a child, but she had been captivated throughout by the combination of pageantry, music, and most importantly, by feeling so deeply connected to her family. She would remember this day not for its formal aspects, but for the sense of belonging and love that had surrounded her. George straightened his shoulders as he stood, already thinking ahead to the conversations he would have about this experience. The young prince had felt the weight of history and tradition, but also the strength that came from facing it as part of a united family. Each ceremonial occasion added to his understanding of the role he would someday inherit, but also to his confidence that he would not face that future alone. The recessional began with the same dignity that had marked their entrance, but now there was an additional warmth in their bearing that had not been present at the beginning of the ceremony. The emotional breakthrough they had shared had not diminished their royal bearing. Instead, it had made their presence more compelling and authentic. As they walked back down the nave, past the rows of distinguished guests, Kate noticed how many faces showed not just respect or admiration, but genuine affection. The unscripted moment of family connection had touched people in a way that no amount of formal protocol could achieve. They had witnessed something real and precious, and their response reflected that understanding. The Abbey doors appeared ahead of them, and with them the return to the public world of cameras and crowds. But the family felt different now, somehow strengthened by what they had shared in the sacred space behind them. Louis skipped slightly as they walked, his natural exuberance returning now that the formal requirements of the ceremony were ending. William and Kate exchanged a glance as they approached the threshold, both recognizing that they were about to transition from the private emotional space they had created back to their public roles. The challenge would be carrying forward the sense of connection and purpose they had found inside the Abbey into the demanding world of royal duties that awaited them. As they stepped back into the sunlight, the crowd's cheers seemed even more enthusiastic than they had been during the arrival. Word had somehow spread about the touching family moments inside the Abbey, and the public response reflected their appreciation for the royal family's genuine warmth and connection. Charlotte blinked in the sudden brightness, then smiled as she saw the sea of British flags and happy faces stretching out before them. The ceremony inside had been beautiful and meaningful, but there was something wonderful about stepping back into the energy and enthusiasm of the people who had waited patiently to share in their special day. The walk back to their car was slower than their arrival had been, as the family took time to acknowledge the crowd's enthusiasm with waves and smiles. George walked with new confidence, his experience inside the Abbey having added to his sense of his role and place in the world. As they reached their car, William turned back toward Westminster Abbey one more time, its ancient towers now silhouetted against the morning sky. Inside those walls, his family had shared something that would remain precious to them always. A moment of pure connection that had reminded them why they served, and more importantly, whom they served alongside. Kate settled into her seat as the car door closed behind them, immediately reaching to smooth Louis's hair and straighten Charlotte's coat, with the practiced efficiency of a mother, transitioning from public ceremony to family care. The formal event was over, but their life together continued, enriched by the memories they had created and the bonds they had strengthened in one of the world's most sacred spaces. The harsh whisper cut through the morning air like a blade. Queen Camilla leaned down toward Princess Charlotte, her voice low but sharp enough that Sergeant Thompson could hear every word from his position just behind them. The transformation was startling. The polite royal smile vanished, replaced by an expression of frustration that seemed completely at odds with the charitable setting they were entering. "You've embarrassed us in front of all these people," Queen Camilla hissed, her fingers gripping Princess Charlotte's shoulder more tightly than necessary. "Can't you follow simple instructions? This isn't a playground, Charlotte. People are watching our every move, and you're behaving like a common child." Princess Charlotte's face crumpled with confusion and hurt. The roses in her hands began to tremble as she tried to understand what she had done wrong. Her grandmother's words stung in a way that the 9-year-old couldn't fully comprehend. She had been so excited about the charity event, so proud of her gift, and now everything felt wrong and scary. The photographers continued clicking their cameras, capturing every moment of the exchange. Sergeant Thompson felt his stomach drop. In all his years of royal protection, he had never witnessed anything like this. The royal family was known for their composure in public, their ability to maintain dignity even under pressure. He had seen them handle protesters, difficult questions from reporters, and even minor accidents with grace and professionalism. But this was different. This was a senior royal publicly berating a child, and that child happened to be a beloved member of the royal family. The charity organizers and local officials who had gathered to welcome the royal visitors shifted uncomfortably. Some pretended not to notice the tense exchange, while others exchanged worried glances. The atmosphere that had been filled with anticipation and excitement just moments before now felt heavy with awkwardness and concern. Several people in the crowd began whispering among themselves, their phones discreetly recording the unexpected drama unfolding before them. "Stand up straight and smile," Queen Camilla continued, her voice still barely above a whisper but filled with authority. "And for heaven's sake, hold those flowers properly. You're representing the crown, not playing in a garden. Do you understand me?" Her words came out in rapid succession, each one designed to correct and control rather than comfort or guide. Princess Charlotte nodded quickly, tears beginning to form in her eyes. She tried to arrange the roses in her hands the way she thought her grandmother wanted, but her small fingers were shaking now. The joy she had felt about her carefully chosen gift was completely gone, replaced by shame and confusion. She didn't understand why picking up a fallen flower had caused such anger, or why her natural excitement was being treated as misbehavior. The press photographers were having a field day. Their cameras captured not only the immediate exchange, but also the reactions of everyone around them. The story was writing itself in real time, a senior royal losing her composure with a young princess in full view of the public. These were exactly the kind of images that could dominate headlines for weeks and potentially damage the royal family's carefully maintained public image. Sergeant Thompson's training had covered many scenarios, but nothing had prepared him for this moral dilemma. His duty was to protect the royal family, but from whom should he protect them when the threat was coming from within their own ranks? He watched as Princess Charlotte struggled to compose herself, her small frame tensing with the effort to meet her grandmother's expectations while fighting back tears. The security detail around them maintained their professional stance, but Thompson could see the discomfort in their expressions. These were experienced officers who had worked with the royal family for years, and they had never seen anything like this public scolding. The protocol manual didn't include instructions for what to do when one royal family member was publicly humiliating another local. News crews that had been positioned to capture positive footage of the royal charity visit were now recording something completely different. The story of a beloved young princess being scolded by her step-grandmother was exactly the kind of content that would spread rapidly across social media and international news outlets. The damage to the royal family's reputation was happening in real time, with every second being captured from multiple angles. Queen Camilla seemed oblivious to the growing audience of concerned observers. Her focus was entirely on correcting Princess Charlotte's behavior, as if the success of the entire charity event depended on the 9-year-old's perfect compliance. The pressure she had been feeling from recent media criticism seemed to be channeling itself into an inappropriate reaction to a child's innocent mistake. Princess Charlotte whispered a barely audible, "Yes, grandmother," her voice small and frightened. She straightened her shoulders and forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes, trying desperately to meet the expectations that had been placed on her. The natural sparkle that usually made her such a favorite with the public was completely gone, replaced by the careful composure of a child who had been made to feel that her authentic self was not acceptable. Sergeant Thompson made a decision that would change everything. His training, his oath to protect the royal family, and his basic human decency all pointed toward the same conclusion. Sometimes protecting people meant protecting them from themselves, and sometimes protocol had to give way to what was right. He stepped forward, knowing that what he was about to do had never been done before in the history of Royal Protection Services. The moment of intervention was approaching, and everyone present, from the press to the charity organizers to his fellow security officers, was about to witness something unprecedented in royal protocol. The question wasn't whether he should act, but how to act in a way that would protect both Princess Charlotte and the institution he had sworn to serve. Sergeant Thompson cleared his throat and stepped forward, his movement deliberate but respectful. "Your Majesty," he said in a clear, professional voice that carried just enough volume to interrupt the tense exchange. "I believe the charity organizers are ready to begin the presentation inside. Perhaps Princess Charlotte would like to lead the way with her beautiful bouquet." The intervention was subtle but unmistakable. Every person in the immediate vicinity understood that a royal protection officer had just stepped between a senior royal and a child, something that simply didn't happen in the carefully choreographed world of royal appearances. Queen Camilla looked up sharply, her eyes flashing with surprise and annoyance at the interruption. For a moment, the power dynamic that governed every aspect of royal life seemed to shift. Princess Charlotte looked up at Sergeant Thompson with grateful eyes, recognizing his intervention as the lifeline it was intended to be. Her small hand reached out instinctively toward him, seeking the comfort and protection that her grandmother had failed to provide in that moment. The gesture was innocent but powerful, clearly showing where the child felt safe and supported. "Sergeant Thompson," Queen Camilla said, her voice tight with barely controlled anger, "I don't believe I requested your input on family matters." Her words carried the weight of royal authority, but they also revealed her awareness that she had been caught in a moment of poor judgment. The public nature of the setting made direct confrontation impossible, but her displeasure was evident to everyone present. The charity organizers, sensing the tension, began moving toward the entrance of the community center, hoping to redirect everyone's attention to the purpose of the visit. Local officials exchanged meaningful looks, understanding that they had witnessed something significant but uncertain about how to respond. The media representatives continued their coverage, now with an added layer of intrigue about the unexpected role of the Royal Protection Officer. "Of course, Your Majesty," Thompson replied with perfect protocol, his tone respectful but firm. "I simply want to ensure that Princess Charlotte's generous gift receives the recognition it deserves. The roses she selected are particularly beautiful, and I know the charity representatives are eager to receive them." His words redirected attention to the child's positive contribution while subtly reminding everyone present of her innocence and good intentions. Princess Charlotte straightened her shoulders, drawing strength from the support she felt from Sergeant Thompson. The roses in her hands, which had become symbols of her perceived failure just moments before, were now being presented as the thoughtful gift they had always been. Her smile began to return, tentative at first but growing stronger as she realized she had an ally in this confusing situation. The press photographers captured every nuance of the exchange, understanding that they were witnessing something unprecedented in royal protocol. The images of a royal protection officer intervening in a family dispute would certainly make headlines, but more importantly, they showed a moment of human compassion overriding institutional hierarchy. The story was evolving from a simple charity visit into something much more complex and newsworthy. Queen Camilla found herself in an impossible position. To continue her criticism of Princess Charlotte would mean publicly arguing with a protection officer who was clearly acting in the family's best interests. To back down would mean acknowledging that her behavior had been inappropriate and required intervention. The weight of public scrutiny and the presence of the media made any response potentially damaging to her reputation and the royal family's image. The crowd of onlookers, including local families who had come to see the royal visit, watched the drama unfold with fascination and concern, Many of them were parents themselves and could see both the child's distress and the grandmother's overwhelming pressure. Their sympathies were clearly with Princess Charlotte, whose natural behavior and genuine enthusiasm had endeared her to the public from her earliest appearances. Sergeant Thompson maintained his professional stance while keeping his attention focused on Princess Charlotte's well-being. His years of experience had taught him to read situations quickly and respond appropriately. But this moment required more than professional training. It required moral courage and a willingness to prioritize human decency over institutional protocol. "Shall we proceed inside?" Thompson asked, addressing both royals but clearly offering Princess Charlotte a chance to escape the uncomfortable situation. "I believe the children's choir is prepared to perform, and Princess Charlotte might enjoy hearing them sing before she presents her flowers." His suggestion provided a clear path forward that would benefit everyone involved while allowing the charity event to continue as planned. "Princess," Charlotte nodded eagerly, grateful for any opportunity to move away from her grandmother's criticism and toward the positive aspects of the visit she had been looking forward to. The roses in her hands no longer felt like evidence of her failure, but like the meaningful gift she had intended them to be. Her natural resilience, supported by Thompson's intervention, began to reassert itself. The moment had lasted only a few minutes, but its impact would be felt for much longer. Everyone present understood that they had witnessed something significant, a breach of royal protocol that revealed both the pressures and the humanity within the royal family. The charity event would continue, but the story that would be remembered and reported was the one about a royal guard who chose to protect a child over institutional hierarchy. Queen Camilla realized that her options were limited. The public nature of the situation and the intervention of the protection officer had effectively ended her ability to continue disciplining Princess Charlotte in that setting. She would have to find a way to salvage the situation while maintaining her dignity and the royal family's reputation. The charity event proceeded with a forced normalcy that fooled no one. Queen Camilla smiled for the cameras and delivered her prepared remarks about children's literacy, but the earlier tension lingered in every interaction. Princess Charlotte, still holding her roses, stayed closer to Sergeant Thompson than to her grandmother, a detail that didn't escape the notice of the photographers or the attendees. Inside the community center, local children had prepared a special performance for the royal visitors. Their excitement was genuine and infectious, providing a welcome contrast to the drama that had unfolded outside. Princess Charlotte watched the young performers with obvious delight, her natural enthusiasm beginning to shine through again despite the morning's difficult start. Her genuine interest in the children's presentations reminded everyone why she was so beloved by the public. Sergeant Thompson maintained his professional position, but kept a watchful eye on both royals. His intervention outside had been unprecedented, and he knew there would be consequences to face later. However, watching Princess Charlotte's spirits lift as she interacted with the other children confirmed that he had made the right choice. Sometimes protecting people meant more than just ensuring their physical safety. Queen Camilla went through the motions of the charity visit with practiced efficiency, but her interactions with Princess Charlotte remained notably cool. She spoke to local officials, accepted presentations from charity representatives, and posed for official photographs. But the warmth that usually characterized royal family appearances was conspicuously absent. The strain of the morning's events was evident to anyone paying close attention. When the time came for Princess Charlotte to present her bouquet to the charity organizers, Sergeant Thompson stepped forward to ensure she felt supported. Princess Charlotte selected these roses herself from the palace gardens, he announced to the gathered group, his words lending importance and dignity to the child's contribution. She wanted to bring something special to show her support for children's literacy programs. The charity representatives received the flowers with genuine appreciation, understanding both the thoughtfulness behind the gift and the current need to support the young princess. Their warm response helped restore some of Charlotte's confidence, and her smile became more natural as she explained how she had chosen each rose for its beauty and fragrance. The moment provided exactly the kind of positive interaction that royal visits were supposed to create. Behind the scenes, other members of the royal protection team were quietly discussing the morning's events. Word spread quickly through the security detail that Sergeant Thompson had intervened in a way that had never been done before. Some admired his courage and judgment, while others worried about the implications for royal protocol and their own positions. The incident had created a precedent that would need to be addressed at the highest levels. The local media representatives were already crafting their stories, knowing they had witnessed something significant. The narrative was writing itself. A beloved young princess publicly criticized by her step-grandmother, and a royal guard who broke protocol to protect a child. The human drama behind the polished facade of royal appearances was exactly the kind of story that would capture public attention and generate widespread discussion. Princess Charlotte's interactions with the local children became the highlight of the event. She listened to their stories about favorite books, shared her own reading experiences, and even recited part of the poem she had practiced. Her natural ability to connect with people of all ages was on full display, reminding everyone present why the royal family remained relevant and important to so many people. Queen Camilla observed these interactions with a complex mix of emotions. Pride in her granddaughter's natural abilities was tempered by frustration at the morning's events and concern about how the incident would be reported. She recognized that her reaction outside had been inappropriate, but the pressure of maintaining royal standards while dealing with constant media scrutiny had overwhelmed her usual judgment. As the official portion of the visit concluded, Sergeant Thompson began the complex process of coordinating the royal departure. The logistics were routine, but the emotional undercurrents were anything but normal. He knew that once they returned to the privacy of the royal vehicles, there would likely be difficult conversations about his unprecedented intervention and its implications. The crowd outside had grown larger as word spread about the royal visit, and many people hoped to catch a glimpse of Princess Charlotte as she departed. Their enthusiasm and affection for the young princess was evident in their cheers and waves, providing a stark contrast to the criticism she had faced from her grandmother earlier in the morning. Local officials expressed their gratitude for the royal visit, but many of them privately discussed the unusual dynamics they had observed. The story would undoubtedly spread through their communities, adding to the growing narrative about what had really happened during what was supposed to be a routine charity appearance. As they prepared to leave the community center, Princess Charlotte looked up at Sergeant Thompson with an expression of trust and gratitude that spoke volumes about the impact of his intervention. The bond between the royal protection officer and the young princess had been strengthened by the morning's events, creating a relationship that would have implications far beyond this single incident. The departure from the charity event marked the end of the public portion of the drama, but everyone involved understood that the real consequences were just beginning. The breach of protocol, the media coverage, and the questions about royal family dynamics would need to be addressed in ways that had never been necessary before in the modern era of the monarchy. The ride back to Windsor Castle was conducted in tense silence. Princess Charlotte sat beside the window, still clutching one of the roses that the charity organizers had allowed her to keep as a memento. Queen Camilla stared straight ahead, her jaw set in a hard line that suggested the morning's events were far from over. Sergeant Thompson, seated in the front passenger seat, could feel the weight of what was to come. Within hours of their return, social media was ablaze with videos and photographs from the charity visit. The hashtag #ProtectCharlotte began trending worldwide as people shared their reactions to the footage of Queen Camilla berating the young princess. The public response was overwhelmingly sympathetic to Princess Charlotte and supportive of Sergeant Thompson's intervention. But the damage to the royal family's image was immediate and significant. News outlets across the globe picked up the story with headlines that ranged from supportive to sensational. "Royal Guard breaks protocol to protect princess," read one major newspaper, while another proclaimed, "Queen Camilla's public criticism of Charlotte sparks outrage." The story had all the elements that made for compelling news coverage: family drama, a breach of protocol, and a child in distress. Behind the closed doors of Windsor Castle, emergency meetings were being called at the highest levels of the royal household. Private secretaries, communications directors, and senior palace officials gathered to discuss how to handle the unprecedented situation. The Queen's behavior toward Princess Charlotte was concerning enough, but the fact that a royal protection officer had felt compelled to intervene created complications that no one had ever imagined having to address. Sergeant Thompson was summoned to meet with the head of royal protection, a conversation he had been dreading since the moment he decided to intervene that morning. As he walked through the corridors of the castle toward the meeting, he reflected on his 8 years of service and wondered if his career in royal protection was about to come to an end. The weight of his decision pressed heavily on his shoulders, even though he remained convinced it had been the right thing to do. Princess Charlotte, meanwhile, had retreated to her favorite reading nook in the castle library. The events of the morning had left her confused and hurt, struggling to understand why her grandmother had been so angry and why the simple act of picking up a fallen rose had caused such a scene. The rose she had kept sat on the table beside her book, a reminder of both the joy she had felt in preparing her gift and the pain of having it criticized so harshly. The head of royal protection, Commander James Harrison, had served the royal family for over 20 years and had never faced a situation quite like this one. As he reviewed the reports from the morning's incident and prepared to meet with Sergeant Thompson, he grappled with questions that had no clear answers in the protocol manuals. How do you discipline an officer for protecting a child? How do you balance institutional loyalty with basic human decency? Queen Camilla found herself increasingly isolated as the day progressed. The public reaction to her behavior was overwhelmingly negative, and even within the royal household, there was little support for how she had handled the situation with Princess Charlotte. Phone calls from senior royals, including King Charles, made it clear that her actions had created a crisis that would require immediate damage control measures. The charity organization that had hosted the morning's event released a carefully worded statement expressing their gratitude for the royal visit while emphasizing Princess Charlotte's enthusiasm and genuine care for children's literacy programs. The statement, while diplomatic, subtly reinforced the narrative that the young princess had done nothing wrong and had, in fact, been a positive presence at their event. International royal watchers and commentators began analyzing the incident from every possible angle. Many praised Sergeant Thompson's actions as heroic, while others worried about the implications of protection officers inserting themselves into royal family dynamics. The debate extended far beyond the specific incident to broader questions about child welfare, royal protocol, and the pressures of public life on young members of the royal family. In the secure communication rooms of the palace, crisis management specialists worked around the clock to develop a response strategy. The traditional approach of never complain, never explain seemed inadequate for a situation that had been captured on video and witnessed by hundreds of people. The usual methods of royal damage control were proving insufficient for the digital age, where public opinion could shift rapidly and decisively. Princess Charlotte's parents, Prince William and Catherine, were contacted immediately upon learning of the incident. Their protective instincts as parents clashed with their responsibilities as senior royals, creating a complex emotional and political situation. The fact that their daughter had been publicly criticized and then defended by a protection officer created unprecedented challenges for their roles within the royal
hierarchy. Sergeant Thompson's colleagues
in the Royal Protection Service found themselves in an equally difficult position. While many of them privately supported his actions and admired his courage, they also understood the potential implications for their own careers and the service as a whole. The incident had highlighted tensions between personal conscience and professional duty that few of them had ever expected to face. As evening approached at Windsor Castle, the full scope of the crisis was becoming clear. What had started as a routine charity visit had evolved into a public relations disaster that threatened relationships within the royal family and raised serious questions about protocol, child welfare, and the role of those charged with protecting the monarchy. The decisions made in the coming hours would determine not only the fate of those directly involved, but also set precedents that could affect the royal family for generations to come. The story was far from over, and everyone involved understood that the most difficult conversations and decisions still lay ahead. The incident had opened questions about power, protection, and responsibility that would need to be answered in ways that had never been tested before in the modern history of the British monarchy. 3 weeks after the incident at the charity event, significant changes had rippled through the royal household. Sergeant Thompson sat in Commander Harrison's office, not to face disciplinary action as he had expected, but to receive a commendation for his exceptional judgment in protecting the welfare and dignity of a royal family member under challenging circumstances. The official language was carefully crafted, but the message was clear. His intervention had been not only appropriate but exemplary. The public response had been overwhelmingly supportive of Thompson's actions, with thousands of letters and emails pouring into the palace expressing gratitude for his protection of Princess Charlotte. A petition calling for him to receive official recognition had gathered over 500,000 signatures within the first week. The monarchy, recognizing the shift in public opinion, had chosen to align itself with the popular narrative rather than fight against it. Princess Charlotte had gradually returned to her normal routines. Though the effects of that morning were still visible to those who knew her well, she had developed a closer relationship with her protection detail, particularly Sergeant Thompson, who had become something of a hero figure in her young mind. More importantly, protocols had been quietly established to ensure that any concerns about the treatment of young royals would be addressed immediately and appropriately. Queen Camilla's position within the royal family had become notably more precarious. While no official statements were made about disciplinary action, her public appearances were significantly reduced, and she was notably absent from events involving the younger members of the royal family. Palace insiders spoke of a period of reflection and adjustment in her role, diplomatic language that masked what was essentially a demotion in her royal responsibilities. The incident had prompted a comprehensive review of royal protection protocols, with particular attention to the welfare of minor royals. New guidelines established clear procedures for protection officers to follow when they observed inappropriate treatment of children, regardless of the source. The changes were implemented quietly but represented a fundamental shift in how the royal household balanced hierarchy with child protection. Prince William and Catherine had worked behind the scenes to ensure that their daughter's well-being remained the top priority throughout the crisis. Their private conversations with senior palace officials had made it clear that any future incidents of this nature would result in immediate and significant consequences. The protective instincts of parents had proven stronger than the traditions of royal deference. The charity organization that had hosted the event experienced an unexpected surge in donations and volunteer applications following the incident. Princess Charlotte's genuine enthusiasm for children's literacy, captured in the footage from that morning, had inspired people around the world to support similar causes. The roses she had selected so carefully had become symbols of childhood innocence and the importance of protecting young people from adult pressures. Media coverage of the incident eventually evolved from sensational headlines to more thoughtful discussions about the pressures faced by royal children and the importance of maintaining normal childhood experiences within extraordinary circumstances. Child welfare experts praised Sergeant Thompson's intervention as an example of how adults should prioritize children's well-being over institutional concerns. The relationship between Queen Camilla and Princess Charlotte remained strained, with their interactions carefully supervised and limited to formal occasions where other family members were present. The trust that had been damaged that morning would take years to rebuild, if it could be rebuilt at all. The incident had revealed fundamental differences in their approaches to royal duty and childhood development. Sergeant Thompson's career, rather than being damaged by his breach of protocol, had been enhanced by his demonstration of moral courage. He was promoted within the Royal Protection Service and became a trainer for new officers, specifically focusing on scenarios involving the welfare of royal children. His story became part of the informal training curriculum, illustrating how protection sometimes required more than just physical security. The roses from Princess Charlotte's garden had been preserved and framed by the charity organization, displayed in their main office as a reminder of the day when a young princess's gift had inadvertently sparked a conversation about protecting children in all circumstances. Visitors to the charity often asked about the significance of the display, leading to discussions about the importance of standing up for children when adults failed them. Within the royal household, the incident became known as the morning that changed everything, though it was rarely discussed openly. The precedent set by Sergeant Thompson's intervention had established new expectations for how staff members should respond when they witnessed inappropriate behavior. Regardless of the rank or status of those involved, the institutional culture had shifted subtly but significantly. Princess Charlotte continued to thrive in her royal role. Her natural enthusiasm and genuine care for others making her increasingly popular with the public. The incident had, if anything, strengthened public affection for her by highlighting her vulnerability and innocence. She remained unaware of the full implications of what had happened that morning, but those around her ensured that she felt protected and valued. Years later, when Princess Charlotte was older and could better understand the events of that day, she would look back on Sergeant Thompson's intervention as a defining moment in her understanding of courage, protection, and the importance of standing up for what is right. The roses she had picked with such care had become more than just flowers. They had become symbols of the moment when someone chose to protect a child over protecting an institution. The legacy of that autumn morning extended far beyond the individuals directly involved, establishing new standards for child protection within the royal family, and demonstrating that even the most rigid protocols could be challenged when human welfare was at stake. It was a reminder that sometimes the most important protection comes not from following rules, but from knowing when those rules must be set aside to do what is right.